The town in Utah looked like it was thriving. Streets were lined with brand new houses, shiny cars in driveways, fresh paint on every porch. Construction sites buzzed with activity, and signs advertising new developments were planted in the dirt. The people spoke of growth, jobs, and opportunity. And at the heart of it all was one man, Mike. To most citizens, Mike was the face of progress. He wore expensive suits, drove black SUVs, and shook hands with mayors and bankers. He was called an investor, a visionary, the man who put their city on the map. But beneath that polished surface, whispers spread. Mike's story was never simple. Years ago, before the suits and the skyscraper offices, he was tied to men the city preferred not to mention. Gangsters, enforcers, names whispered only in bars late at night. People said Mike had been their partner, running money and cutting deals in dark alleys long before he became the big boss. Now those whispers followed him like shadows. No one dared confront him directly. Everyone knew that power and silence walked hand in hand. If you wanted a job, you smiled at Mike. If you wanted to keep your business, you did not ask questions about his past. But not everyone stayed silent. Charlie, a young journalist and activist, was the voice that refused to be quiet. He wrote for the local paper, and more importantly, he ran a social media account that thousands followed. His posts were blunt, his words sharp. Mike built his empire on blood, Charlie wrote in one article. The homes you live in stand on money washed clean of crime. Some called him a hero for daring to expose the truth. Others called him reckless, saying he was poking a lion with a stick. Charlie did not care. He believed that if people knew who Mike really was, they would stop treating him like a savior. The city grew restless. Every new article Charlie published drew bigger crowds online. Every whisper about Mike's past became louder. At cafes, people argued over their coffee. Was Mike a criminal or just a businessman who had moved on from mistakes? Was Charlie a brave truth-teller or an attention seeker chasing headlines? The mayor announced a town hall meeting, a place where citizens could ask questions about the city's future. No one expected fireworks, but everyone knew that if Mike and Charlie showed up in the same room, sparks would fly. That evening, the town hall filled with people. Folding chairs lined the floor, and the smell of dust and old wood filled the air. Local reporters set up cameras in the back. Neighbors whispered to one another, glancing at the entrance every time the doors creaked. Charlie arrived first, carrying a worn leather notebook under his arm. He looked calm, but his eyes burned with determination. He was ready to speak the words he had already printed for months. Then the doors opened again. Mike stepped in. His suit was sharp, his watch gleamed, his steps were slow and deliberate. Every head in the room turned toward him. Some clapped, others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The air tightened. Two men, one with power, one with words. And the town was about to witness the clash. The mayor tapped the microphone, welcomed the townspeople, and spoke about housing, budgets, and the future of the community. His words were routine, but no one in the room was really listening. Every eye flicked toward Charlie, who sat near the front row with his notebook open. When the floor opened for public comments, Charlie stood. The wood floorboards creaked under his steps as he walked to the podium. He placed his notebook down, cleared his throat, and looked straight at the crowd. Neighbors, friends, he began. We live in a city that is growing fast. But growth without truth is nothing. You all celebrate the new homes, the new jobs, and the money flowing in. But do you know where that money came from? Charlie's voice grew stronger with each sentence. Mike, the man many of you call a savior is no savior. He is a man who once worked with criminals. He took their money, cleaned it, and built an empire with it. And now he hides in plain sight, calling himself an investor while the truth rots under the surface. Gasps rippled through the hall. Some people leaned forward, nodding. Others shook their heads, muttering that Charlie was going too far. Reporters' pens scratched furiously across notepads. Cameras zoomed in on Charlie's face. Charlie slammed his palm on the podium for emphasis. The people deserve to know who builds their homes. Do you want to live under roofs raised with clean money or blood money? In the back of the hall, a chair scraped loudly against the floor. Mike stood. His presence filled the room instantly. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and his tailored suit made him look untouchable. He walked slowly down the aisle, each step echoing against the wood floor. The crowd parted their gazes between him and Charlie, waiting for the collision. Mike stopped only a few feet from the podium. His voice was deep and sharp, cutting through the silence. "You are a liar. Every word you wrote is poison. You smear my name for attention, for your little newspaper, for clicks on your social media. You are not a journalist. You are a coward hiding behind words." The crowd roared. Some shouted, "Yes," in support of Mike. Others booed, defending Charlie. The mayor pounded his gavel, yelling for order, but the hall was alive with chaos. Charlie gripped the podium, his eyes locked on Mike. "If I am lying, then prove it. Show the records. Show the deals. Show us how you made your first fortune. If your money is clean, then let the truth shine. But if it is not, the people deserve to know." Mike leaned closer, pointing a finger at him. "You think you can challenge me with rumors and gossip? You think your little words are stronger than everything I built? You know nothing about the sacrifices I made? Nothing." Charlie's voice rang out clear. "The only thing I know is this: power without accountability is corruption. And I will not stop until people see the man behind the mask." The town hall erupted. One side of the room clapped loudly for Charlie, shouting words like truth and justice. The other side cheered for Mike, yelling that Charlie was jealous, reckless, and dangerous. The mayor's gavel slammed again and again, but the sound drowned in the storm of voices. At the front, two men stood locked in a battle of stares. Mike, the big boss who ruled the city with money and influence. Charlie, the journalist armed only with his words. The confrontation had begun, and the city had chosen sides. Mike stepped even closer to the podium, his shadow looming over Charlie. His voice thundered across the hall. "You write stories, but you have no proof. You poison this town with lies, dragging my name through the mud because you cannot stand the success of others. I built this city with my own hands, with sweat, with risk. You sit at a desk and call me a criminal. Who do you think the people will believe?" A section of the crowd cheered loudly, clapping and shouting, "That's right, Mike!" Others shook their heads, hissing back, "Answer the question!" Charlie stood firm. He raised his notebook high in the air. "Proof? I have interviews, records, names, people who worked with you before you wore your shiny suits. They told me what you did. They told me how you made your first fortune. And if you want me to, I will print every single word tomorrow." Gasps spread through the hall. The reporters leaned forward eagerly, their cameras flashing. Charlie's voice grew sharper, cutting through the noise. "You think your wealth makes you untouchable? You think because you donate to charities and shake hands with politicians, no one will ask questions. But this town is not blind anymore. They see the truth. The homes you build are not just foundations and walls. They are monuments built on fear and silence." The room buzzed. People argued openly in the crowd. One woman shouted, "We need housing. We don't care where the money came from." Another man yelled back, "We will not let blood money run this city." The mayor's gavel slammed again, but the hall was out of control. Mike's face twisted with anger. His finger jabbed toward Charlie's chest. "You are not a hero. You are a parasite, feeding off attention. Every word you print is a weapon, and one day people will see you for what you really are. A fraud." Charlie pushed the finger away and spoke directly into the microphone. "If telling the truth makes me a fraud, then I will wear that label proudly. Because I would rather be hated for speaking the truth than praised for living a lie." Half the hall erupted in applause. The other half booed and shouted insults at Charlie. The room was no longer just an audience, it was a battlefield of voices. Supporters of Mike shouted about jobs, homes, and stability. Supporters of Charlie shouted about justice, accountability, and corruption. The mayor stood helpless, his gavel drowned out by the chaos. Reporters captured every second, sensing that this confrontation was more than a meeting. It was a moment that would define the town. Charlie raised his voice again over the noise. "Mike, answer me this. Who were the men you worked with before you called yourself an investor? Where are they now? Do they still walk in the shadows while you smile in the light?" The crowd went silent again, waiting for Mike's reply. Mike's eyes narrowed, his voice dropped low, almost like a growl, but the microphones caught every word. "You better stop digging, Charlie. Because if you keep dragging my past into the light, You will find yourself in the dark, and once you are there, no one will pull you out." The words sent a chill through the hall. Some people gasped, others murmured nervously. A few shouted angrily at Mike for making a threat in public. Charlie did not flinch. He stared straight into Mike's eyes and said firmly, "Then let the darkness come, because the truth will always find a way out." The tension in the hall reached its peak. Everyone knew this was no longer just a debate. It was a war. The mayor slammed his gavel again and again, but his voice was swallowed by the storm. People shouted from every corner of the hall. Some demanded that Mike answer the question. Others screamed at Charlie to sit down and stop stirring trouble. A few stood up clapping and chanting for truth. The noise echoed off the old wooden walls, shaking the very air. Reporters leaned over their equipment, capturing every second. Flashbulbs popped like lightning. The town hall was no longer a civic meeting. It was a stage for a public war. Mike lifted his hands, demanding silence. The crowd quieted, not out of respect, but out of fear. His face was carved with fury. Mike's voice cut through the noise like a blade. "You keep talking about my past, Charlie. You want to drag it out into the light? Fine, I did things when I was young. I made choices I am not proud of. But without those choices, there would be no houses, no jobs, no future for this city." The room froze. Some people gasped at his admission. Others nodded, saying at least he was being honest. Charlie seized the moment, his words sharp. "So you admit it. You built your empire on crime. You used gangsters to rise, and now you dress it up with charity and construction projects. But you cannot buy away the blood that built your foundation." Mike's eyes burned. His jaw clenched tight. He stepped so close to the podium that his breath hit the microphone. "You think your words protect you?" Mike growled, "but words are thin paper. Paper burns, and when it burns, you will stand with nothing but ashes. You want to keep poking into my past, Charlie? Then remember, my friends are not the kind of men who forgive. They do not sit in newspapers. They do not smile for cameras. They do not care about your little speeches." The hall filled with gasps and murmurs. Some shouted, "That's a threat." Others yelled, "He's telling the truth." The mayor shouted for silence, but his voice was weak against the roar. Charlie leaned into the mic, refusing to back down. "If your friends still walk in the shadows, then let them come into the light with you. Because the truth will not burn. It will survive you. It will survive your empire, and it will survive whatever threats you throw at me." The crowd split down the middle. One side stood and cheered for Charlie, chanting his name. The other side booed and shouted insults, calling him a liar and a fool. Families argued with each other in the aisles. Old neighbors shouted across rows. The hall looked less like a public meeting and more like a brawl waiting to happen. Reporters shouted questions at Mike, their cameras flashing wildly. "Do you deny working with criminals? Are you threatening the press? What do you say to your critics?" Mike ignored them all. His eyes never left Charlie. Mike's face softened into a cold smile. He leaned close to the microphone and said, "You should be careful, Charlie. Because when you play with men like me, you are not just risking your job, you are risking your life." The hall exploded. People screamed, some rushing for the doors, others shouting at the stage. The mayor threw down his gavel in frustration, shouting for order, but order was long gone. Charlie did not move. He stared directly at Mike, his voice steady. "Then I will risk it, because this city deserves to know the truth." The cameras caught every second. The town had witnessed the mask slip, and the whole room knew the clash was no longer about words. It was about survival. The town hall was no longer a meeting. It was a battlefield. Shouts filled the room. Some people stormed toward the exits, furious and frightened. Others rushed forward, trying to shout questions at both men. The mayor gave up pounding his gavel, slumped into his chair, and muttered to an aide that the meeting was over. Security guards formed a line between Mike and Charlie, ready in case the clash turned physical. The two men never looked away from each other. Mike's cold smile lingered, while Charlie stood tall at the podium, breathing hard but refusing to step back. Reporters snapped their final photos. The cameras had captured everything. When the doors opened, the crowd spilled into the night air. The streets outside the hall buzzed like a storm. Groups argued loudly under the streetlights. Some chanted Charlie's name, calling him a hero. Others defended Mike, saying his money kept the city alive. Local news vans pulled up, reporters setting up tripods, eager to broadcast the chaos live. People held up phones, recording the crowd, streaming the argument across social media. The whole town was watching, and soon the whole state would be. Mike left the hall first, surrounded by his bodyguards. His SUV door slammed shut and the vehicle rolled away slowly, headlights cutting through the mob. Charlie walked out later, surrounded not by guards but by supporters who clapped his shoulders and told him to keep going. Back in his small apartment, Charlie sat at his desk staring at his laptop. His phone buzzed nonstop. Notifications from social media, calls from reporters, messages from strangers. Some praised him, others warned him. A few sent threats that made his skin crawl. He opened his notebook, the same one he had carried into the hall, and began to write his next article. His hand trembled, but not from fear, from determination. He wrote, "Tonight, the mask slipped. Power showed its teeth. The people saw what I have been writing for months. This is not just about one man. It is about the kind of city we want to live in." He hit save, knowing the fight was only beginning. Meanwhile, Mike sat alone in his office high above the city. The glass walls reflected the glow of streetlights below. He poured a glass of whiskey, staring at the ice swirling inside. His bodyguard stood silent outside the door, waiting. He whispered to himself, "The kid does not know what he started." His mind drifted to old friends, men who had once done things for him in dark alleys and empty fields. He thought of calling them again, of pulling the past into the present. Then he looked at the city below, the homes rising, the lights glowing in every window. He muttered, "This is mine. I built it. No one will take it from me." The town went to sleep that night buzzing with rumors. Some people dreamed of change, inspired by Charlie's courage. Others feared the storm that might follow Mike's threat. The line was drawn, and the community stood divided. Charlie sat at his desk whispering to himself, "Truth is never safe, but it is always worth it." Mike sat in his office, staring out into the night, whispering, "Power does not bend. It breaks those who challenge it." Two men, one with words, one with power. Their paths had crossed in public and neither would ever turn back. The clash at City Hall was not the end. It was the beginning of a war for the soul of the city. This is the end of that story. Now tell me in the comments, what was your most embarrassing story? I'll read out the funniest ones in the next video. Do not forget to hit a like button and subscribe. See you.